You are listening to the Brand Architect Podcast, and this is your host, Ani Alexander.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Brand Architect Podcast. I know that I've been lost for a few weeks, and I really would like to apologize about this. I did a Facebook live stream where I touched the topic, which was partly the reason why Brand Architect new episodes were not coming out. The shorter version of the thing is that I didn't really have a good quality content I could share with you, and I decided to stop it for a while, and instead of just giving out something, make sure I air a new episode once something good and valuable is available. So we had a break, but I'm back. I have new content, and I'm gonna have new stuff coming out consistently. We will be getting back to our normal schedule of having one episode per week. So sorry about the break, but I'm back, and we're going to have loads of new stuff coming out. And in order to bring you more content, and in order to make sure that my time, which is getting less and less available free time these days, is used productively, I decided to do many Facebook Lives, which will be eventually converted into these podcast episodes. So what I will be doing from now on is I will be making loads of Facebook live streams, including the interviews. The interviews I will be recording on Facebook Live on my Facebook page. And you can participate on the recording live. You can come over and ask your own questions to my guests as well. And like that, you will have the option of either watching it live or watching the recording of the thing, or you can go ahead and listen to it as a podcast, as you usually probably do on your way to work and back in a car or in a gym or while jogging, whichever, wherever you're listening to this podcast from. So you do have a choice. If you would like to participate on Facebook Lives, please make sure that you like my Facebook page, and you will get notified once I'm live. I will make sure that you get information in advance about when I will do the Facebook Live, especially the interviews, who the guests will be, what the topic will be. So you will come over, you can come over and ask questions. If no, it will always come to this podcast stream, and you can always listen to it as you usually did. So this is the plan. This episode basically explains a lot about why I got lost, about the fact that I'm coming back, and it's my thoughts on content creation and whether you should push yourself and stress yourself out by creating content nonstop and not getting the results. So my thoughts on content creation and how you should decide upon how much content and how often you should produce it. Here it is. Just have a listen. Make sure you like my Facebook page at anialexander.com/Facebook. And I promise to have really nice things coming out with amazing, interesting guests and with a little bit controversial and non-standard topics. So we're going to be a little bit edgy, and I'm going to bring in people who think differently and do things differently. So you will have alternative routes, alternative options, different type of things you never heard about before, probably. So that's it. I hope you'll enjoy the episode, and I really hope that we will be meeting again and again every single week with new stuff coming out. Today I want to talk to you about content, about digital content, and how it ties in within your strategy and whether you really need to create content nonstop. So I decided to talk about this because eventually I realized that while people are leaving corporate because they don't want to do all this rat race of 9 to 5, we end up moving into entrepreneurship, moving into online business. And at some point, we end up in the same race, but it's no longer 9 to 5. It's, I don't know, 24/7 probably sometimes, because we get into this hustle mode. We put different goals. We really want to succeed. We want to see results fast, and end up doing everything by ourselves in the very beginning because we're bootstrapping, and we dedicate lots of time on doing stuff. And at the end, we end up yet in a race, a different one, but still in a race, and we end up creating stuff one after another, and not really leveraging and getting most out of what we have created. So I wanted to talk to you about that first of all, and then we can start a discussion and conversation about that. But let's talk about content creation. Very often, many people advise that, especially in the very beginning, when you're just starting out, you have to be a content machine, and you have to create content over and over and over again all the time on a daily basis, which is a good advice. It has a place to be, but at a certain point, you end up creating too many things, and if you haven't reached the stage where you already have an audience and people already are consuming your content, you will end up creating on a daily basis stuff that will be consumed by no one. And that's going to be really sad. At some point, you will see the results, you will look at the stats, you will really feel frustrated. Because let's be honest, we all say that, yes, if my content changes the life of at least one person, I will be more than happy because I want to change someone's life, and don't care about the numbers. It's not that important. We say that. We may even mean that, but believe me, at a certain point, if that's just one person over and over again, and you've been creating stuff for months and months and years, and it's just one person, at a certain point you will lose motivation, and at some point only just that one person may not be enough. And you will be looking for more, or you will think that, okay, I've been creating content for about 2 years. It's not working out. Maybe it's time to stop. So what do you do? I mean, do you still keep being content machine or not? So we have this content creation phase, which is very important, and you do have to make sure that your content is relevant, that people resonate with it, that it's of a good quality, and that it provides value. That all is absolutely valid, and that is part that you can't skip. There is no shortcut. You do have to create content. It is part of the journey. It is part of what you are supposed to do. And whether it's, the format doesn't really matter. So whether it's a written type of content, whether it's a audio podcast, whether it's a live stream, whether it's a YouTube video, pre-recorded video, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. But in any case, you will need to create a good quality content, okay? So we passed this stage. Definitely, you do need to create content. That is for sure. But let's just take a pause and try to understand how much content do you have to create and whether it should be a non-stop process or not. Because let's say you are creating a live stream. It's seen by, 3 people, for example, and it's an important topic. You've created it because the message really matters. It really resonates with you. It's very important message. You really want more people to hear about that. So do you keep on creating content on the similar subjects over and over again until these 3 people become 6 and then 10 and then 15? Or do you create just one piece of content and repurpose it and make sure that people in different places, regardless how they consume media, do get the message? So let's say I'm doing this live broadcast, I'm doing this live stream, but I have a podcast listeners who are used to listening to me while they are driving in their car. So for them, I will most probably need to have the audio version of this because they can't watch me and drive, which is good. They're not supposed to. But that way I will reach another set of people whom I can't reach with live stream. Later on, what can happen is, once the audio version is out there, parallel to that, I can just transcribe what I just said, and I can have a blog post, and then I can reach people who prefer reading content instead of listening to it or watching it. Then I can take different points that are important from what I said, and I can create a quote images for Instagram or Pinterest or whatever it is, and then I can reach people who are really resonating with that same message, but they don't really use, they don't consume content by watching or listening or reading stuff. So they just need a very short snippets of information and they just immediately want to see something, read it in a few seconds and move on. So do you really, what is better? Is it better to create a new original content over and over and over again all the time and become and not stop being a content machine? Or you can do smarter and actually stop for a while and repurpose the content that you already have. So that is one thing to consider. So you just, based on how much content you already have produced and what kind of results you have reached, maybe a better way of leveraging it is taking the existing content, repurposing it, and going wider with what you already have. Another thing is, which actually happened to me recently, when we end up doing stuff over and over again, in the very beginning, of course, we are super excited. In the beginning, when we see the results, we are very motivated. We keep on moving forward. Then maybe the results are not as good as we wished they were. At some point, we plateau, but then we remember that we're supposed to continue hustling, that we're not supposed to give up, right? And we have to move on and continue doing what we're doing. And eventually, probably we're not getting the results we want because we haven't worked hard enough at some point. Okay, maybe, but maybe if we keep on doing what we're doing and if we are not getting the results we want, maybe the reason is not because we haven't done enough of it, but maybe the reason is we're not getting the results we want because we're not creating the right thing or we're not following the right direction, right? So yes, anti-hustle. Yes, that's you can say that I'm looking at this anti-hustle movement from a different perspective, but we end up to the same conclusion. Do you need to continue doing one thing over and over again if you're not getting the results you need? Do you need to work harder, or do you or there is a way so you can work smarter, so to speak? So that is the thing. Once you have been producing for a while, I'm absolutely sure, just don't get me wrong, you do need to go through phase one, which is creating good content. You do have to have certain amount of content in your back belt, just to make sure that you have tried that. So you have to create content in order to have a foundation in order to work from, right? Because, by creating content, you will make sure by having it out there, you will make sure that you have tried different things. You know what your audience prefers, how it, reacts, and all that stuff. You can experiment and see what's happening. What I mean by everything I'm saying right now, maybe it's not as structured and as clear as I'd like it to be. But what I mean is when you are getting into this new race which is the entrepreneurial race, the hustle race, the not giving up race. And you're creating stuff and you're looking for results, and then, you're following strategy, and then you're seeing another shiny object, and then you're seeing someone else trying something new and teaching you new stuff. And then you end up sort of, moving around and losing focus, and in between creating different type of content and trying different things, etc., etc. Once you lose that focus, and once you lose that motivation, and once you're not very clear what you're doing, things will start becoming messy. And you will end up, spending more time on things that probably are not needed and that probably are not going to give you results anyway. But just in order to make sure that you tried it and it didn't work, but you tried it and you know why it didn't work, you end up doing loads of things that you probably are not supposed to do. So for me, the thing is, once you have created a certain amount of content, once you already have the foundation, once you have tried to repurpose the content and you have tried many other things, there comes a stage when you have to stop for a while, take a break, sort of detach from the whole thing and try to look at it from a new angle with a fresh look and as objectively as you probably can. It's very hard because, that is something you have created yourself. So it's your content. You may not be able to be completely objective about that, but you will have to try to. So I'm using the same principle that writers are using when they are writing their books. So usually when you have written your first draft of the book, it doesn't really matter whether it's a nonfiction book or a novel, whatever you're writing, it doesn't really matter. But once you have created the first draft of your book, and Hemingway has told that the first drafts are always shitty. So once you have created that shitty draft, what writers always recommend and what works best is to put that draft in a drawer or to close it in a file or wherever you're having it, in your notebook, wherever you've written it, it doesn't really matter. And to forget about it for at least 2 weeks or 4 weeks, depending. But completely forget about it, not think about it, just leave it aside. And only then, once you have sort of detached from it, taken a few steps back, taken a break, revisit it, and read it over with a fresh look and fresh perspective. And that is what I recommend you doing with your content. Once you have been creating your content for a while, just, take a pause for a few days. Don't do anything. Don't create anything. Stop for a while and take a break. Just detach from everything for a while and then revisit and try to look at it from the objective angle. If you manage to look at it from your ideal audience's eyes, if you know your audience well enough so you can see it through their eyes, that would be ideal. Then many questions will have answers. Then you will realize many things you wouldn't realize otherwise because you were in this race and you didn't have time to take a pause and look things through, and your head wasn't really clear, you were in a rush, things were happening, and you can't really come up with the right solutions. So take a pause and just stop it for a while and reconsider. So what happened with me personally is I took that pause, which was very difficult because you end up creating content on regular basis for years. This is what you're used to. This is your normal. And just leaving it aside makes you, I know what you may be scared of. I know that you may think, but if I don't create anything, people will start forgetting me. It's very noisy out there. It's crowded out there. They are used to getting a new episode every week. And if it's not delivered, they will eventually forget me. They will listen to another podcast. They will go to another person. By the time I come back, it may be too late. I will lose audience and all that stuff. I completely agree with you. I had the same issues and the same questions in my head that. And I'm like, oh, how can I do this? People are, used to getting new stuff. People are waiting for it. They will think I stopped everything altogether. They will think that I'm disappearing. They will think that I'm giving up. This is something that, is the hardest. You feel like if you pause and take some time off, it means that you're giving up, which is not the case. It's not giving up. It's just re-energizing and re-strategizing and re-evaluating stuff in order to come back to it refreshed, with a clearer mindset, with a more focused approach, and eventually with much better results. So, okay, it's not about giving up. It's not about forgetting what you've done up to that point. It's about taking a break and looking at things so you can clear your head, you can come up with the right mindset, and you can find the answers you wouldn't be able to find while you are in this race running around and creating content nonstop. So that is what I did. It was very scary. I had all these thoughts I mentioned in my head, but nevertheless, I didn't produce any new episode of my podcast for a whole month. And I didn't even check my stats because I was sure that my stats would be really low because, no new episodes, people are not listening. Everything will look very, very sad. So it took me about, I think, 3 or 4 weeks. I haven't produced anything. What I did during that time is go back and look at the things that I had already produced. I went to my audience and I spoke with some of them with whom I had direct connection. I also spoke with my online friends who are doing similar stuff. And I ended up getting new ideas and understanding how I want to reshape and reevaluate and change what I've been doing up to now. And then today, I did the scary part and I eventually looked at my podcast statistics. And guess what? For that whole month, I haven't produced a single episode. It has been that. I mean, I have certain promotional tools for the podcast on autopilot. So I haven't been promoting anything related to my podcast. I haven't been producing anything related to my podcast for a whole month. And then I revisit the stats. And guess what? I was waiting for a graph to go just like, a very sad and boring and tough graph to look at. What actually happened was this 1 month when I was silent, I had more listens, like with several thousand listens more than I had last month when I produced 1 new fresh episodes per week. So last month I had 4 new episodes. This month I had 0. And this month already I had 2,000 listens more than last month. So taking a pause is not always a bad thing. You're not losing listeners straight away. If you are doing some stuff, you're just being over there. And if you've been there for a while and if you've been producing stuff for a while, things won't just disappear in a second. Your audience will not disappear and forget you in a second. I've been doing this for 3 years. I've been producing podcast episodes twice a week in the beginning and then once a week every single week for 3 years. So 1 month didn't change anything. But what it changed was I could objectively look at the existing 186 or 87, I don't even remember, 180 something episodes back then. And I could really objectively evaluate what was going on. It was very painful to acknowledge to myself, but I realized I looked back in the last 10 episodes approximately, and I realized that those were not all of them were as good as the general main quality of my podcast was and has been always. And that was the strength of it, because the episodes were focused, they were practical, they were motivational, and I had, which is very important, I had amazing guests, handpicked amazing guests over and over again every single time. So at the end, just because of different things that were happening, and just because I lost that focus and I lost that important things I was after, in the last times I ended up, in the last few months, I ended up producing something I was not so proud of as I have been with previous episodes I have produced like last year or 2 years ago or even 3 years ago. So taking this time off actually helped me evaluate things the way I wanted to, which was brutally honest and with a side look. I realized that I was ending up with doing content fillers, which is something I hate doing, and I didn't even realize that I was doing that. But by content filler, I mean something that you are producing just because it's time to produce and air a new piece of content, because that's your schedule, and you just do it just because you have to, so to speak. Which means that when you are interviewing a person, you're too busy and you have too many other problems and you have too many other issues to deal with, and you're not very focused and not very motivated, and people can hear it because they know it's not your style. You don't have enough time to find the perfect guests, so you end up just interviewing whoever is easier to catch at that certain moment. And as a result, it damages your brand. It damages the overall perception of your podcast, of your content in general. I'm talking about podcasts because that's what I'm producing. But if you have something else, it will damage the quality of the content that you produce. And on long term, it will bring much more long-term damage than you are realizing now. So I guess the message was, based on what I did and based on what I saw and based on what I discovered, you don't really have to take a whole month off. This is a stretch and this is not probably preferred timeline. But even like that, even taking a month off is not that scary. All these things we were worried about, that people will forget us, we will lose audience, and, it feels like giving up and all that stuff. It's not valid. It's not true. And I proved it to you because I've done it and it's not the case. And it will help you look at the things objectively from another perspective, from a new angle, and give you new ways of starting re-energized, starting from the right perspective and in a much better mindset and focus. So I guess that's all that I wanted to tell you about this. If you feel obliged to create content nonstop, and if you feel obliged to stick to your schedule, and if you are in a situation where you have doubts and you're not absolutely certain that is the right route and that is what you should stick to, and that's exactly what brings you the results you want, maybe that is a sign that it's time to take a pause and do what I did just a month ago. Another thing is, taking a break can be an experiment in order to find out how many people will actually notice that you're no longer around. How many people will come back to you saying, oh my God, we miss your podcast. What's happening? It's not there. We were looking for it and, we want to hear something. What's going on? Why aren't you around? What's happening? So, that's another perspective to look at it. Just, disappear for a while and see if people even noticed or people even care. Because if they don't, then maybe you overestimated the value you provided or overestimated the importance of your content. Maybe your content is not important. It's just another something that goes into their timeline and they just see it periodically and it doesn't really make any difference. So by taking time out and disappearing for a while, will give you the right objective, picture of what's going on by the number of people who approach you and by what they say. This is not the popular and polished and nice and very attractive topic. And what I've told you, most probably many people would not tell you. And it's not something that is very sort of popular to speak about those things. But I just went through it myself, and I decided that it's worth sharing with you. So you should go ahead and think about this. And maybe what I did is something that would benefit you as well if you ended up, doing the same thing. So just think about it. It's just, don't have to take a whole month off. You can take just a few days off, but do this experiment and see what it teaches you, what it brings you, and what it helps you realize. Because that may help you on long term in strategizing things and in deciding your next steps. But I hope it brought something to you. I hope it was useful. And thanks a lot for sticking around. I really, really appreciate it. Okay, that's it. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, morning, evening, wherever you are. And just enjoy your day. Take a little bit of time off. Don't feel obliged to be in this rat race of content creation. Okay, so that was the Facebook Live that I did a few days ago. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, Facebook Lives will be coming on regular basis. If you want to participate on the recording of the podcast episodes, if you want to watch the thing in a video version, if you want to ask your own questions to my upcoming guests or suggest topics, please go ahead and like my Facebook page and follow it from there. anialexander.com/Facebook. That's my Facebook page that you're supposed to like. And as soon as you like it, you will get all the information and you will be notified every time I'm doing live episodes. So if you want to watch and participate and learn about the podcast episodes earlier than it comes out in audio version, please feel free to do so on alexander.com/Facebook. Otherwise, as always, once a week, you'll be getting your content. And I truly, truly appreciate your attention, your time. I really love the fact that you're listening to the show. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to it. If you have, you'll hear from me next week.